Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe Illustrated. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we are back for another fantastic issue of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. Today we are covering issue number 73. That's right, we've done 73 episodes of Joe on Joe Illustrated. More than that, because we've done a few of the specials and crossover annuals and yearbooks and stuff. So, man, I'm loving it. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. Remember, you can show this show some support by following me on social media at Joe on Joe Pod. That is on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Give me a follow. Chime in. Let me know you're following me. Let me know you enjoy the show. Send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the show. Chime in with corrections. A good friend of the show, Dave Amiot, once again this week. What did he ping me? Megaforce. Pinged me with Megaforce this week. That was the movie I was trying to nail down last week for what the G.I. Joe vehicle looks like. And I appreciate that, Dave. You know I always do. And listeners, rate and review this show. We appreciate all your support. And if you actually really want to directly support the show, you can go to Patreon. Go to patreon.com/JoeandJoePod. And you can support me by being a grunt or a viper, $1 or $3 a month tier. That gets you full access to the entire catalog. That means all these issues of Joe and Joe Illustrated, going back to issue number 1, and as well as just helping me make this show possible on a monthly basis. You can also do a sponsorship. We have a sponsor level. And speaking of sponsors, our great sponsor, Movies in a Mill Podcast, let's hear about them. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not 2 movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben. And each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Penseriga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. Because I know I'm listening to more podcasts than ever, working from home, being not in the world a lot. So I hope you guys are giving Movies and a Meal a listen, because they're definitely worth it. Ben's a great guy, and I'm happy to have him as a sponsor of Joe on Joe. I'm also really happy this week because so when we do the cartoon, when we did all the cartoon episodes for the regular stuff, I did not watch ahead, right? So I didn't prep in the sense of or like watch the whole series and then know what I'm going to. I would go week to week and kind of have a fresh discovery. And I'm doing the same thing with the books. Now, while I've certainly read all of these before, it's probably been a good 20 years since I've read these books. So I was genuinely pleasantly surprised today as I'm reading issue number 73 from G.I. Joe and see that, holy cow, this was the start of the Cobra Civil War. I forgot. I thought we were a ways off, a good number of issues off from it. And I loved this run. I remember this very clearly. I would have been 13 at the time. Very clear in my brain how much I enjoyed this Cobra Civil War. So it's starting with this issue, and I'm gleefully excited about it. It's absolutely fabulous. I hope you guys are going to enjoy it as much as I do. It ran for 5 or 6 issues and was just dynamite. Before we dig into that, though, we are going to check out a segment we call
You were saying?
and check out books that were on the shelf the week of well, actually, not the week, really. The month, rather, that this book was on the shelf. So this book came out with a cover date of July 1988. So other issues of comic books that were on the shelf during July of 1988 from DC Comics include Action Comics Weekly. Action had just gone to weekly. I believe last month was the first month. So I think one of the best parts, like things that came out of Action Comics Weekly, were some of the covers were great. I believe that's a Paul Smith Green Lantern cover. Is that a Howard Chaykin Action Comics 609 cover? Let's see here. Cover. Oh, no, it's Brian Boland. Yeah, that's a Brian Boland Action Comics cover. Let's see. Action 610 was... Who's this? Oh, David Lloyd. You guys know David Lloyd's work from V for Vendetta. He did a sweet Deadman cover. And then 607 is, Steve Lytle. He recently passed. Steve Lytle does a great Secret Six cover featuring a Mockingbird with a knife and the six in cover. And yeah, let me just verify as long as we're confirming things here. Yeah, that's Paul Smith Green Lantern. Paul Smith had a he draws a mean Green Lantern, man. I'm here for it. We also have John Byrne in the middle of his Superman run. This is a cool book. It's the Batgirl special. It drawn by Barry Kitson, a young Barry Kitson, with a Mike Mignola cover on it. And it's Batgirl busting through the window. She had not really had her own series ever, so this is technically the Batgirl #1. She had the spotlight, I think it was Detective, or might have been just Batman Family at the time. But she really never had a Batgirl series, so technically this is Batgirl #1, and it's called The Last Batgirl Story, ironically enough. And what else? And so I believe I've read this before. One of the reasons this story came out is that they wanted to put like this showcase Batgirl story out there because the big book of the month is Batman the Killing Joke. If you've ever read The Killing Joke or seen the movie, you know that that's where the Barbara Gordon, the Batgirl, gets crippled by the Joker. The Joker being the Joker. So this is the month of that seminal book came out. That's a huge book. It has eclipsed so many books in the year since it's come out. There have been, just so for you collectors out there, something along the line of, like, there's probably 12 reprints out there. Like, it has been reprinted as just a singular, and I'm talking about in that trade shelf format. It's been reprinted like 12 times. I'm not near my price guide, otherwise I would grab that. But the cover that you want to look for, if you're a collector, you want to look for the green cover. That's the first print of it, because they can be designated. Well, one, it says on the inside and the indicia, but they can be designated on the cover by the color of the logo. So in this case, it's the neon green Batman the Killing Joke stamp that's on it, right below the Joker taking the photo with the camera. So that's how you know you're looking at a first print. So if you're ever looking to buy one and someone's trying to charge you a ton of money for it, it better be the green one. Second print, third prints, fourth prints, they don't really go for much more than, $10, $15, something like that. But a first print Killing Joke can go $60, $80, probably more these days. I haven't really bought one in a while or sold one. I think the last one we had, we were selling for about $80. And it's because it's the first print and it has been reprinted. There's a weird sweet spot where, like, sometimes when things get reprinted so many times, then the first print can actually go up more because it's kind of oversaturated. So people then tend to go, no, I want the first print. Whereas if it's just been reprinted a few times, your collectors who already had one who already wanted it have it. And then the newcomers are okay with just buying the hardcover reprint. I've got this in first print, and I've definitely got one of the hardcover reprints, and yeah, it's worth it. I love it. I think it's a great series or story. It's controversial, and it launched 1,000 bad ships. I've seen the animated cartoon. I think the first half hour of that preamble they put on it, I think that should be exorcised from the film and completely just destroyed and never shown again. Other than that, I think it's a great adaptation of it. It's the ending is always up for debate whether Batman kills him or not. Anyway, this isn't the Killing Joke podcast. This is this is Joe and Joe. But yeah, Killing Joke is out this month, so that's absolutely the biggest month or biggest comic book that came out this month for sure. Let me scroll down here and see if there's anything else that captures my eye. There's really not much else. There's some other good stuff, but that's it, man. Killing Joke kind of eclipses everything for DC Comics. So hey, Marvel,
You were saying?
let's take a look. Man, Alf number 5. Just kidding. No, not really. The McFarlane run continues on Spider-Man 302. So his run ran, I think, to like 321 or 322 or something like that. These first 15 or 16 issues after 300, they're always going up in value, maybe $1 or so a year. They're up to around around $10 or so now, maybe 15, depending on. There's like one that features, anything with Venom obviously goes for a little more, but then the Inferno crossover goes for a little more than that. But yeah, these are always good. If you're ever looking for just solid books that you can add to a collection, if you find them cheap somewhere, someone's collection, they're not paying attention to it, you can snap up anything McFarlane, really. But the McFarlane Spider-Mans from Amazing, snap them up. They're always in demand. The McFarlane Spider-Man, so it's just Spider-Man, it was his story alone. Those are going up too, but they're going up a lot slower. I think the print run was bigger, and also the stories weren't as good because he was doing the writing, at least on the first few. And I think they're just not as seminal as some of this amazing stuff. So 302 is on the scene. Let's see here. Black Panther, the miniseries, Volume 1. This is Dennis Cohen did the cover art. Wrote by Peter Gillis. Dennis Cohen did the interior art. Black Panther is his early issues were very cool, and they're very, like, the non-Kirby stuff were always very socially forward, I would say. And this one, if I recall, I think he deals with apartheid in this. It's been quite a while since I've read it, but between this and the one by Don McGregor, I think Panther's Prey, was it? They're always very socially relevant, very socially forward stuff, and really good. And Dennis Cohen, his art is, even today, it's always worth looking at. I'm a big fan. I got to meet him for the first time, like personally. A friend introduced us, and I was kind of tongue-tied. I'm sure I made an ass of myself. But I'm like, oh my God, I love your stuff. Here's a cool comic. It's called The Draft, or Draft number 1. If you remember a couple months back, we talked about The Pit, which was a new universe story that kind of restarted the new universe around a cataclysmic event, which was the destruction of the city of Pittsburgh, from the Star Brand getting transferred into an inanimate object. The Draft was the follow-up to that, and that was the militarization of the United States superpowers in the new universe world. Another overlooked book. I have this. Again, this has been a while since I've read it, but I was fascinated. I love reading the stories that try to, not that I don't root for failure and stuff like the New Universe or 2099, but inevitably in most of these offshoot series, there comes a point where they look at sales and they say, like, all right, we have to shake it up. So what can we do? And then there's some big cataclysmic event. In 2099, it was they did Doom 2099, and Doom took over the whole universe. And he took over, like, the whole universe of comics, rather, not the actual universe. But he took over the United States. So all the comics were rebranded Doom, and they all took on this, specter of Doom running things. Same thing with the Draft here. So then all the new universe books had to reflect this new era of Pitt being destroyed, and now the superheroes were drafted to be soldiers and things like that. That always fascinates me. I can think of I didn't read a ton of the Valiant stuff, but I believe when they did that Unity crossover, which was supposed to be, that was them trying to kind of jumpstart their universe. Certainly DC and Marvel do it regularly with the Crisis stuff, and obviously Crisis being the biggest version of that. And maybe that's why I love it so much, because I'm a longtime fan of Crisis. But Draft is another smaller scale version of that. G.I. Joe European Missions #2 with Snake Eyes and Hawk on the cover. Really good looking cover, actually. This is a great comic book. Hulk 345. Remember, McFarlane was still working on Hulk at the same time as Spider-Man. And it's a fabulous cover with just a way monstrous, oversized Hulk. And he's squeezing the letters of the title of the book, the word Hulk. He's squeezing them out of the way. And McFarlane has drawn the Hulk so that he absolutely takes up the whole page. The whole cover, really. He's crowding out on the letterbox and everything. Very classic, very iconic cover. I'm a fan. I'm a real fan when characters interact with their logos. I love that. Not just like it's fun when I see them above it, which we're going to talk about in the next comic, actually. But when they actually interact with it, when they really give it depth and purpose and stuff, I think that's just great. I'm always a fan of that. And the next comic I'm going to talk about is Iron Man 232, which was the coda to the Armor Wars story. And it's Iron Man being like hung by by his old Silver Centurion armor. And, it's like he's like, it's like he's on a gallows kind of a thing. But that is laying over and on top of the Iron Man logo, which is cool. But this was a Barry Windsor Smith cover, and this was the coda to the great Armor Wars story. Let's see here, Nick Fury versus Shield #2. Let's see, Transformers #42. I'm still reading. I bought Transformers digitally. They had a big package for sale, pretty cheap, a while back. I'm still working my way through those. It's good. They're more enjoyable, and I like Transformers a lot. I'm not a massive fan of the lore, or I'm not very knowledgeable of the lore. I am a fan of the lore. I'm not very knowledgeable of it. So it's kind of neat to read through it as it was being kind of generated at the time, because my understanding from friend of the show, Matt Kyle, so much of the Transformers lore was actually written by, I think Bob Budiansky wrote most of it in these Transformer books, which is crazy because that's, how much, Transformers are huge, how much have they grown over the years with all the cartoons and all the movies and everything. But a lot of that really was pulled by the stuff that was being done in the Marvel Universe comic book. So I always recommend going back to the source. So I always recommend going back to stuff like Transformers #42. And over in West Coast Avengers #34, we're getting ready to we're getting closer to the John Byrne stuff, which was the true Wanda era. But this one, I believe, is Pietro shows up and kind of acts as a weirdo. Yeah, he does. And we all love a good crazy Pietro story. It's funny this era was literally these months was when I was really getting into the mainstream Marvel universe. So I only ever saw Pietro as an absolute lunatic villain. And then as I learned more and read that he used to be an Avenger and he's this, he was that. And I was just always like, what? This guy is a nut. Why do they keep him around? Because all the stories that I was reading was like this. He was the bad guy in an X Factor annual. There was an FF annual around the time too that he showed up as a bad guy, and he was just unhinged. And so whenever still to this day when I see Pietro shown in any kind of superhero light, like in the Avengers movie and all this stuff, in the back of my head I'm still going, don't trust that guy. That guy's an absolute nut job. He'll turn on you.
You were saying?
Now we're gonna go over to the movies and look at what was in theaters in 1988 of July. Now, guys, if you guys know your history, you know the biggest movie of July, and we're going to get to it. It came out on July 15th. But before we do, there's a couple movies that need to be discussed. License to Drive with Corey Haim and the Coreys came out on July 6th. And the same day, Short Circuit 2. I loved me some Short Circuit. I remember even as a child thinking 2 was terrible. So I'm going to assume I'm still not going to like 2, but I haven't watched 2 in forever, and I haven't watched 1 in probably the same amount of time, but I loved Short Circuit 1. On July 8th, Arthur 2 on the Rocks. I, as an adult, have come to appreciate Dudley Moore. I did not like Dudley Moore as a kid. I didn't get the humor. I didn't get anything about it. And It was just not my cup of tea, but it was always on cable. That's what I remember. On July 13th, which would have been my 13th birthday, The Deadpool with Clint Eastwood. And that's right, Liam Neeson. He was the director of the movie. And this was about people in Hollywood getting bumped off. And then there was a Deadpool, very much like the Deadpool in the movie Deadpool, where Deadpool gets his name, a collection of people that they're going to bump off. And if you remember, Axl Rose shows up in the movie. Or actually, I'm sorry, take that back. It's Jim Carrey, but they're singing Guns N' Roses music. And it's Jim Carrey kind of doing an Axl Rose impersonation. So the Deadpool on July 13th. But just 2 days later, I was 13 years old and 2 days old when one of the greatest films of all time in my life came out, Die Hard. That's right, guys. Die Hard. Today, no joke, I live within like 2 miles from Nakatomi. I see it at least 2 or 3 times a week if I'm driving around. If I walk a couple blocks, I can see it directly in eyesight. I can see it in the skyline. Every time I drive past Nakatomi, which is, Fox Plaza, but it's always Nakatomi to you. Always Nakatomi to me. Every time I drive past that, I get excited. That's how much I love Die Hard. It's every time my friends visit, they always say, "Can we go by Nakatomi?" And I say, "Absolutely." I love Die Hard. I love everything about it. And yes, it is a Christmas movie. If you don't think it's a Christmas movie, you're wrong. Same day as Die Hard, though, A Fish Called Wanda. That's a huge movie. Oh my God, are you kidding me? 5 days later, another favorite movie. This is top 5 comedies for me. Midnight Run. Stop it. De Niro, Grodin, Yaphet Kotto, rest in peace. He just passed the other day. Man, I loved Yaphet. Agent Mosley, Dennis Farina, Joey Pants, John Ashton, who's awesome as the other bounty hunter. Joey Pants is so great. My friend Phil recently got married, and for his bachelor party, we got him a bunch of those cameos. And Joey Pantoliano, that's why they call him Joey Pants. He's on Cameo, so we called him and talked to, and he gave us some of his character from Midnight Run, and Muscone bail bonds, and it was great. He was a super nice dude. He gave us a super long cameo. It was awesome. So if you're a Midnight Run fan, and you've got someone in your life that's a Midnight Run fan or something like that, and you got a birthday coming up, get them a Joey Pants cameo. Tell them Joe on Joe sent you, and he's the best. But I love Midnight Run. Absolutely love Midnight Run. 2 days later, on July 22nd, Big Top Pee-wee, far inferior sequel to Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but still fun, but far inferior. I don't. That's who directed it. Randall Kleiser. Oh, he directed Grease too. Funny, interesting. Caddyshack 2 also came out 2 days later. Speaking of far inferior films, Caddyshack 2 is garbage. And then just a few days after that, Cocktail with Tom Cruise and Brian Brown. True story, I bartended in college at TGI Fridays. And TGI Fridays was that bartending system, that crew, that organization, is the crew that trained Tom Cruise for this movie. So all the flips and all the bottle tricks that you see Tom Cruise doing was all TGI Friday moves that the head Fridays trainer trained him on when I worked there in 94 to 97. And I was a bartender there too. So like they had bartender championships. So like national championships on how well you could flip bottle. They called it, flair. How well you could flip bottles and make trick drinks and throw glassware around without shattering. I was okay. My friend Paul Copper was fantastic. Copper, if you're out there, you're the best. But it was a lot of fun, and all they ever did, and so that would have been 8 years late after this, was talk about, this is the TGI Fridays is the crew that trained Tom Cruise for Cocktail. Did you know that? Yeah, it was cool. Yeah. So also that day is the New Adventures of Pippi Longstocking. I don't know. I've never seen that, but it does have Frank Welker in it. I don't know if he just did a voice in it, because Frank Welker that's Megatron, right? If memory serves. And was he a I wonder, was he a voice in this movie, or was he actually an actor in it? Interesting. I don't know. I've never seen it, but Frank Welker has a connection. Oh, Michael Bell, of course. Duke. So they must have did voiceover stuff. They must have done voiceover stuff in this. Anyway, yeah, no, it's live action. It is not animated. Maybe they were talking animals. I don't know. Anyone here out there ever see Pippi Longstocking? It's a musical adventure film. Anyway, so guys, what a huge month. Talking Midnight Run and Die Hard. First and foremost, that's massive. That's all you need. That is all you need in life, guys.
You were saying?
That's all for you were saying. And now we're going to dig into G.I. Joe number 73.
Now, mass is ready.
So again, guys, Cobra Civil War, that's the top note. It sneaks up on you, and it is here. It's great. We're going to look at this cover, and it's actually a gorgeous cover by Ron Wagner and Bob McLeod. It's a bunch of Joes jumping out of a Mamba that they had confiscated back in annual or yearbook number 4. Lieutenant Falcon, Gung Ho, Tunnel Rat, Sneak Peek. They are the forward advance team that we're going to find out what they're doing. And I love you could tell a lot on this cover. So one, we know it's a Cobra ship, and not just because you may or may not identify the Mamba, they make sure to show the Cobra logo on it. And then you have the guys jumping out that obviously are not Cobras. And you see that they're jumping into, they're on like the wrong side of barbed wire, and the barbed wire has Cobra sigils on it. So you're saying a lot just by imagery here. There's no assault on Cobra Island. There's no the Joes sneak onto Cobra Island. There's no text or anything. It says everything it needs to say about the story inside based on literally just the graphics on this cover. It's really smart. It's really good. And it's good looking. Set at night, so it's very dark. Wasn't the last issue was with the headlights? You remember that? That was this one. I think plays it better. There's more. There's kind of a light gray smoke in the background. That's used for the ocean, and then I guess the cloud cover in the rear. So that kind of breaks it up a little bit. But it's a good looking cover, and it's always nice to see Lieutenant Falcon get in the mix. By the way, Don Johnson, I see you're on the new show. Come on, Don. Come on to Joe and Joe. Let's talk Lieutenant Falcon, Don Johnson. Let's make this happen.
Yo, Joe!
Divided we fall. And I love that Divided we fall. Script by Larry Hama, Ron Wagner on breakdowns, Randy Emerlin finishes, Rick Parker lettering, Bob Sharon coloring, Harris the editor, and DeFalco editor-in-chief. So we do have Ron Wagner credited with breakdowns, so that means Randy Emberlin is probably a stronger Emberlin influence on the art here than Ron Wagner, which we've seen from issue to issue that actually can matter. It looks great though. That's not a complaint. It's just characters tend to be a little tighter when Wagner does the full pencils, but I'm zero complaints about this issue. I think it looks great. I think this splash page looks fantastic. Mutt and Junkyard are holding that ADCD shirt, which was the ACDC shirt that the Star Viper was wearing. Junkyard is losing his mind on the shirt. It's actually really good dog acting on the part of Wagner. Spirit is tracking, or looking at the ground, looking for tracks. And Wildcard and the other guys, Skidmark, character sensation of '88. They're pulling up in the Joe vehicle, and the headline of the story is "Divided We Fall," and the words are actually in silver. They look like they're made out of steel, so it's like strength, 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 and then you get to the word "fall," and the last letter is falling off, which is really just a subtle. Great, it's a chink in the armor. There's, and in this case, it's actually referring to Cobra because, a house divided cannot stand, and that's what's happening here. So as strong as you may look on the outside, it's starting to all fall apart for Cobra and Cobra Island, and yeah, it's great. But it's a nice splash page, lots of color, which is neat. Like especially because like last issue was set at night, so you got the sun breaking over the Utah mountains. and it's shooting rays of light. And you know, we don't get a lot of like color like that, you know, like these beautiful sunsets in G.I. Joes. And you usually don't associate that with G.I. Joe. You know, it's usually night missions and things like that. So this is neat. It's good perspective. And basically they're, if you remember the Star Viper had escaped with that expensive black box technology, satellite technology. So they're trying to, and as he left, he jumped into the semi truck, which had that stiletto in it. Stiletto rocketed off and got away. So now they're trying to basically, like, what happened? Like, what exactly happened here?
Yo, Joe!
We see, you know, hey, we have a security problem here. If Cobra can just waltz into our most secret base undetected, you know, it's totally unacceptable. They're talking to Hawk now. And as the car pulls up, and that's the Desert Fox, I keep calling it a car. That's the Desert Fox. That's the vehicle that I think looks like it should be in Megaforce. So Hawk's riding in the Desert Fox, and as that Fox pulls up, and this is that they were in hot pursuit against eventually the Stiletto, so they were away, you know, like they were, let's say, a couple miles down the road. So now they're returning to the base, and and Junkyard can't smell, you know, he smells the shirt, but he can't pick up any trace of any humans. As the Desert Fox pulls up, that's when Junkyard loses his mind, and Spirit sees that the intruder actually hid on the underneath of the Desert Fox, and you could see his fingerprints down there, and so they're going to match that up, and so they're basically like, oh wow, this guy's really awesome. This is a fun character beat. Remember Wildcard was breaking everything. Just for no reason, we see Wildcard handling a pistol, like a revolver, and he breaks it. It's just fun and funny. Like they're not actually shooting at anyone. He's just holding a pistol. I'm assuming he shot rounds at the Star Viper, and the pistol breaks in his hands because of course it does. But while they're checking that out, a C5 Galaxy pulls up with some heavy brass come a visiting.
Yo, Joe!
So the Pentagon, they want to find out what's going on because they lost that new prototype black box. So Hawk has to go answer to him, and this what C5? What did they say it was, a C5? Yeah, C5A Galaxy. The front end lifts up to the Desert Fox, drives in. I like that the guy doesn't recognize General Hawk. He's waiting. He's expecting General Hawk, right? But he actually asks him as they pull in. He says, General Abernathy, they codenamed Hawk? That's me, Troop. Like, he doesn't... We know who General Hawk is, but your average serviceman shouldn't be expected to know him. He's not a celebrity. It's a little really subtle detail like that I really appreciate about this, because they're not celebrities. They're just soldiers. And that guy, now you might want to go, can I see some ID? But that's just, that's funny. So Hawk gets out and he goes in to check the security door. And we don't exactly know what's going on behind the security door. I think this is, I feel like this is this whole little beat here. Let's go to the next page.
Yo, Joe!
This whole little beat here is kind of Larry ramping up to the Hawk dealing with the jugglers more. If you remember them, the clandestine politicians and admirals and things like that kind of ran the show that Hawk would have to answer to in secret. I feel like this is a little bit of a prototype for that, because Hawk goes into this and it's a flying fortress, and there is a full suite of soldiers doing their duty and they're tracking things and all this stuff. And this is who are they called? General Hollingsworth, right? So Hawk's like, hey, what's up, buddy? And Hollingsworth basically says the brass, they're going to bury you after he lost this black box. It was like $1.5 million. It was a lot. It was an expensive black box. And they're worried about there was an anti-tampering on it. So they're worried that if Cobra can figure out the anti-tampering device, if the explosion doesn't show up on satellite, then they're going to want G.I. Joe to go into action on it. So Hawk's like, well, what do you want us to do? Now, you can read this as him saying, well, what can we do? Like, let's do it. And you can also read it as, like, well, what do we do about it? But he says, he basically says he can't tell him to do anything, but a prudent commander would send in a recon team. So he's given the Joes permission to violate, like UN protocols, or, because remember, Cobra is an actual sovereign nation. So he's saying, yeah, I wouldn't do it, but if I were you, you might want to send in a covert team.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, above Cobra Island, Star Viper is coming in for landing. So this stiletto, which is kind of neat, it's not just your typical airplane. Like, it goes up into the stratosphere and then, comes down more like a, what is that? Like the Concorde used to fly like that, like it would go straight up in the air and then kind of come down on a parabolic arc to get places faster and use less fuel, things like that. And that's kind of how the stiletto flies. So he's coming in for a landing into Cobra control, the heat shield holding steady, things like that. And we get a nice overhead shot of Cobra Island. Now, you might think, oh, okay, great. And thanks for, hey, that's what Cobra Island looks like. It looks like an island. But this picture actually says a lot and is really important to the reader. Because what are we getting in this issue? We're getting a civil war. So what do we need to do? We need to understand the geography where that civil war is going to be fought. And on this picture, which is a 2/3 splash as the stiletto flies in overhead, we see pretty much all we need to see. We see the Terrordrome on the right. We see Cobra, like the Cobra, I guess you'd call it temple headquarters thing on the left. Beyond it, I think beyond it is what's supposed to be the freighter. And then you see the landing strip down here at the base. And you see that those two things are divided by a mountain range. This is all really important because this plays into the geography of what will eventually become the Cobra Civil War. So this is not a page to be just glossed over. This is actually a strangely really important page for the rest of the comic.
Yo, Joe!
Now we get the bandstand with all the Cobra top brass waiting to review the return of the Star Viper. Because remember, this is supposed to be a game changer, this black box, right? It's supposed to give them a big leg up in the arms race against G.I. Joe. So in this bandstand, let's see, Serpentor, it's Fred Commander. Cobra Commander is actually Fred. Mindbender, Firefly's there. We haven't seen him in a while. Tomax and Zaymont. Major Blood is there. I almost said Killer Croc. Crocmaster. The Dreadnoks. There's a Cobra Crimson Guardsman, Zartan, Zarana, Xandar. Like it's the Baroness. It's all your hitters that's fit to print. Yeah, there's a miscoloring thing where there's just someone with a white face, but that's supposed to be whichever one of the twins had the scar on the face. That's supposed to be him, but it's not colored right. But you could see there's a scar drawn there. And certainly Serpentor is relishing in their victory because this was their operation over Cobra Commander. And the last time Cobra Commander and Baroness went out, they had some failures in Fruzenland. Here it's mistyped as Prusenland. And Mindbender is having no end to his snickering. And we see the stiletto land, toy appropriate landing too as well.
Yo, Joe!
Now here's the stiletto landed. The Viper's in there, and he sees a red carpet reception. He's very excited. There's a close up on him. Meanwhile, back on the dais, Fred and Serpentor are getting into it, and Serpentor is, in my opinion, stooping a lot lower than the last time we saw him. Now, if my knowledge of this in memory serves, is Serpentor was not a favorite of Larry's. He did not enjoy him. He did not enjoy writing him. In fact, this whole Civil War seems as a good way to write him out of the book. And I think that shows here because Serpentor was, when he first showed up and for a long time, he was self-assured. He was this, ultimate warrior. And in this book, in this issue specifically, he really comes across very petulant. He says, "You can't stand to see me succeed, can you? It's not my fault that you're such a loser." And that's kind of the dialogue that Cobra Commander would say, like this kind of petulant kid dialogue. Serpentor, for my money, was always a little above that on the cartoon, and especially actually in the first appearances of him. So it's either, oh, let's write him out and not treat him very well on the way out, or it's a sign that running Cobra turns you into a petulant a-hole. And that might be the actual thing. But while they're like literally in your face, finger pointing, arguing, all the attention is off the Star Viper, where he's getting out expecting a parade and a celebration and all that stuff. And these guys are still in each other's face, calling him an ingrate, loser, a has-been. And I really like the staging on this because the camera flips from POV back and forth from to the Star Viper to what's going on in the dais, and it keeps the Star Viper. He's in frame for everything. First, there's a close up, and he's unaware exactly. He's totally unaware of what's happening. And then in the second panel, we see him in the back, kind of getting the chips cooling off, and we see what he's about to walk into. Then it's another it's a full body shot, but it's on him, and it's his expectations. And then we see him just included in the picture so that we're this fourth panel here where it's the close up on his hand holding that box, which is the MacGuffin, and it's keeping us reminded that that's the important thing here. You could almost see if this were real life, you would see his hand relax as he walks into this fighting, like he's like defeated, like what am I walking into? But it's also really great because this is his point of view, that what he's walking into. He sees from a distance. These guys aren't paying him any attention at all. They're screaming. Then we get a close up on his face and this shocked look of like, hey man, like I just did this awesome thing. I actually beat G.I. Joe. None of you guys ever beat G.I. Joe. And then we pull back a little bit to further see his face still and what he's now seeing and how this has escalated, and Commander and Serpentor are face-to-face, nose-to-nose. It's a nice progression on this page. I'm a fan.
Yo, Joe!
Serpentor yells, better to be a has-been than a never was, and they go tumbling off the podium, dais, stage, whatever you want to call it. And all of the Cobra troopers are circling them. They're all cheering them on, stop. Someone's yelling, stop, hold them back. Commander's calling him a rattle brain. The buzzer is yelling, let him go. We want to see him duke it out. Serpentor's calling him a buckethead. And classic comic book staging at the bottom here. Two people going at it. You draw them in opposing angles in the same size box with similar looks. It's just like the camera's going from one way to the other, and that's what you get here with Commander angle towards him, yelling at him. Serpentor angle towards Commander, yelling at him. It's really nice.
Yo, Joe!
And the tension is broken by the Star Viper, bringing the quote prize plucked from the heart of the enemy. And Serpentor doesn't care. He tells him to get out of his way. Can't you see I have more important things on my mind? Now Mindbender swoops in and he grabs this before the Baroness can, and that's important. And we know that, so the Star Viper asks if he's going to open it. That's because it's important to us because there's the anti-tamper on it. And we see that Mindbender says there's no time for that now because we're about to have a civil war in our hands in a matter of minutes. Go take a shower and keep your electrodes dry. So this is what we're waiting for, is them to try to tamper with it so that then the Joes will see that heat flare go off and they'll know that they're safe. But the more it gets delayed, which is, constantly putting obstacles in the way of that, the more the Joes have to go on their mission, which they're on this issue.
Yo, Joe!
100 miles to the east, the USS Flag is patrolling the waters, and we've got a Tomahawk that's landing with General Hawk and a crew. There is an operations team. They're going to stay on the Flag, and that's Flint, Lady J, and Mainframe, and General Hawk. And then there's a recon team. The recon team is Dial Tone, Tunnel Rat, Spirit, Sneak Peek, Gung Ho, under the command of Lieutenant Falcon. He's actually not drawn in this picture, but everyone looks great. And Sneak Peek looks like the doughy, weird character that he always has been. Tunnel Rat looks appropriately short. Like this is a nice drawing. And this is classic G.I. Joe to me. You're going on a mission. You have to do the roll call. You have to call out the action figures so that the readers can get behind their make sure if you don't know every character is, this is making sure you understand everyone who's ready for action as Admiral Keelhaul says.
Yo, Joe!
Now, Keelhaul briefs Hawk on, they know the mission, but kind of this scenario. Basically, he's saying they couldn't do a flyby prior to their arrival because they didn't want to risk alerting Cobra. They see that the last few insertions have been amphibious, and so because of that, Cobra has stepped up their patrols and things like that. So the only way to do it, they can't go in by water, basically. The only way to do it is they have this stolen Mamba, which is from the G.I. Joe yearbook number 4. They're going to use that to kind of slip in under the radar and kind of blend in and drop the guys off with the stolen Mamba. So that's the plan to get insertion onto Cobra Island.
Yo, Joe!
Now, what's amazing is Larry doesn't waste time, and that's never wastes time on G.I. Joe. The Civil War has now begun. That's it. When we go to Cobra Island, there are fires everywhere. There's smoke. There's destroyed HISS tanks, and we're in the middle of the Civil War. So Mindbender and Serpentor are on one side, and we're told that Tomax and Zaymot are with them so that they get the Crimson Guards, and they also have the Bats, the Battle Android Troopers, which were loyal, not loyal to Mindbender, I guess, but built by Mindbender, so he's programmed them to be loyal. And, Serpentor looks at that as a legion of the nameless and the soulless, which is perfect because that's what is he. But, this amalgam of DNA, does he have a soul? I don't know. But he wasn't born like you or I. He was created as well. So I like this symmetry that they give him the army of bats. And, the CGs are humans, but, what are CGs? But they were made over to all look like Freds, right? Which is also ironic that the CGs are fighting a Fred on the other side too, which is pretty great. And we see here for the first time, I don't remember seeing this before, Serpentor's head, he grabs his head in pain, right? And this is a new wrinkle.
Yo, Joe!
We're seeing him hear the voices of his DNA ancestors, right? So he's hearing attack, burn everything in your path. That's the way the Great Khan, so Genghis Khan. A praetor of Rome lays a well-engineered siege. Every marshal of France knows the artillery. So he's having a difference of opinion amongst his many personalities. I don't remember seeing this in the comic. I love it. This is something that I feel like we did see. Well, we did. What is it? The greatest, that episode where he was going off a few of my favorite things, was it? Where he went and found all the mementos from his past lives. I think that's really cool. And he says to Mindbender, you have no idea what the burden it is to be the sum of too many parts, which is a neat little insight into Serpentor's psyche. And we see that these guys are holed up. Their side of the war is going to be holed up in the freighter. And this was the freighter that basically Cobra Island was built on. Remember the freighter at the bottom of the ocean with all the explosives. So they're going to be hiding out in the freighter. But they have the black box. And Mindbender has the idea to sell that black box to the Americans to get their assistance to defeat Cobra Commander.
Yo, Joe!
Which is really quite advanced thinking for being literal page 2 of the Cobra Civil War. Mindbender is already like, let's end this quick. I'll just go to the Americans for help. We don't need this. It's valuable to them. Let's use it. I like that. Again, not wasting time. So now we get a Conquest X-30 and the Mamba. They're zooming in over the water, and it's slipstream, of course, flying the X-30. I love that X-30. It's a murky shot here, but just seeing it so low on the water, that was a great toy, man. Really, really cool. I like the way the water is drawn here in the sliver of an inch preceding them on this page. It's very calm, and then it's just being torn up as they fly overhead. It's nice. Nice touch. And Lift Ticket's flying the Mamba, but the other guys are crammed three man to a pod on that Mamba, which is that 3-pod, Cobra flight vehicle. So they're all crammed in because it's only built for one. That's kind of funny. So the X-30 leaves, and as it flies off, it's going to shoot off some radar deploying chaff, which is going to give even more cover to the Mamba as it approaches Cobra Island.
Yo, Joe!
And on Cobra Island, the CGs are involved and they're fighting. And this is basically, we're pretty much on Serpentor's and Mindbender's side of the battle for this one. We don't see a ton of what's happening soldier-wise on Cobra Commander's side. but they're already into like, is there a weakness in the enemy lines we can exploit? Like they're well into this battle. This is great. Like this is really great. Tomax and Zaymar are filling them in on what's going on, and there's a battle android trooper that's standing guard alongside Serpentor, and we know
Yo, Joe!
that Fred has hacked into the battle android trooper's visual sensors. We got that from last issue, right? So now Fred and the Baroness are sitting on a couch watching on TV what's happening in the throne room. Very smart in the art front, where they draw Mindbender and Serpentor at the angle that the bat would be. They don't make the mistake of drawing it like we saw, you know, like a full shot. You know, it's a lot of times in a lot of movies they'll say we got security camera footage, but they'll actually use footage from the movie. And it's like, that's not security camera footage. That is footage from the movie that you're showing us as security footage. It's not where a camera would be. In this case, it is where a camera would be. And it actually matches what's in the viewplate of the bat on the previous page, which is nice. And we see that Mindbender is going to take that personal Mamba, and he's going to be in Washington. He'll be there by noon tomorrow, and he'll make the deal, and he'll bust a deal and face the wheel with the United Military. So Fred's like, well, let's just shoot that Mamba down. Let's go for it. Or actually, well, I'm sorry. They're sending the Mamba. Let me correct that. They're sending the Mamba after Mindbender's private helicopter. I got a little ahead of myself there.
Yo, Joe!
So Mindbender's in that big Cobra chopper, which they never made, which we always wish they would, that carried everything, that big bulky helicopter. He's taking off from the deck of the freighter. He's got that black box with him. And meanwhile, on the other side of the island, Fred and Baroness are sending their Mamba after him. And you see the Mamba pilots, like, the radar's a little fuzzy. Well, that's from the X-30 dropping that radar chaff. And he can already see Mindbender's helicopter, so he's just going to go at him. Mindbender's not going to get very far. In fact, if the Joes didn't intervene, the guy probably would have killed Dr. Mindbender here. Let's be real.
Yo, Joe!
So the Mamba's approaching him from due east, but they see that there's another Mamba coming from the west. So there's two Mambas, and Mindbender has no idea what's happening here. The one Mamba is coming, is the Joes, and the other Mamba is coming from Cobra Island. So Lift Ticket also notices, so it's going to be trouble. Now the other Mamba, he knows that the other Mamba pilot knows that there was a Mamba that was stolen. So he realizes it must be the Joe team. He's the only guy in this situation that knows. The Mindbender has no idea that these are G.I. Joes. But his radar is jammed from that chaff that Slipstream put out. So this all, like, it all builds. The reason I keep bringing that up is because it's just little moments that Larry peppers into the story that actually play out, even if you're not paying attention.
Yo, Joe!
Now, Mindbender, they're not very evasive, so they're going to get caught if they're not lucky. But he's like, get us out of here. The Cobra Mamba is going to shoot him down. Actually, the Cobra Mamba now is going to shoot down the Joe Mamba. And this is another great versus page and panel here. So you got the Mamba on the left and Lift Ticket on the right, and they're both facing each other at the opposing angles. And then you get these nice long panels where they're going one at each other, and they both fire their missiles in sequence at each other.
Yo, Joe!
Lift Ticket at the last minute dodges, and the Cobra pilot doesn't have that luxury. And Lift Ticket hits a strike. Mark 1 in the Lift Ticket kill cam. And Mindbender is just like, well, one of those guys blew up the other guy. He has no idea what's going on, but they don't care because they're able to get away. So it's so funny. Mindbender could care, but he doesn't. There's a civil war going on. He's only got his own butt to care about, which is great.
Yo, Joe!
And so Mindbender. So now it's a great fun page that in the cover of darkness, the Joes jump off the Mamba, and it's the full team we talked about earlier. They're deploying quietly, and as they deploy, we see Captain Min, our favorite tugboat pilot. He sees them slinking through the jungle, and he says, perhaps they're here to hunt the one called Cobra Commander, who is really Fred. I cannot let them kill him. He's for me to kill. Me, Captain. He's mine. I, Captain Min, must make him pay. Welcome back, Captain Min. I love it.
Yo, Joe!
And if that weren't enough, kids, if a squad of Joes being covertly slipped into the middle of a Cobra Civil War wasn't enough, in the Caribbean, there's a luxury liner that's it's a disguised luxury liner. It is heading towards Cobra Island with a bunch of Iron Grenadiers on it, and it's Destro, and we're getting to see Destro's full Iron Grenadier army. Remember, we only met his Sergeant Major, and it was just Destro and his one sergeant. Now we're seeing that, oh no, he's got a full-on army. The full Iron Grenadiers, and they're training, they're doing their physical training, and according to Destro's spies on Cobra Island, Cobra Commander and Serpentor may have whittled each other down so badly, by the time Destro gets there, they might be able to take over without even firing a shot. So Destro is going to Cobra Island to take over Cobra. Guys, I was so excited when I finished this book. It is the Cobra Civil War. I have such fond memories of this story. I am so happy to be here. I'm so happy you're here with me. I hope you guys love this as much as I do. I can't wait to read it, the next issue, and see how it all plays out again. It's been, what, 25 years? Is that right? Yeah, 30? 35 years? Oh my God, 33 years? Oh my God. It's been a long time since I've read this book. I'm so excited. So thanks for coming along on the ride with me. And now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.